My name is Zania Tran, and I'm 30 years old. If you had walked into our apartment that morning, you would have said the light was beautiful. Capitol Hill does that, makes even a cluttered countertop look like a photograph. My boyfriend Marco always said the golden hour was the brand's best friend. He meant the hive, the five-person organism that once felt like a friend group and now felt like a production company with brunch privileges. We'd been together 3 years, living together for 10 months. I'm a civil engineer, concrete, stress loads, rebar schedules. Marco is a social media manager. Our ledger was simple: split everything 50-50, save for Portugal next spring, talk about the future when the noise died down. I thought we were building something. Turns out I was learning how to be quiet on cue. At first, it was sweet. Marco would ask if I minded a photo of our date night. I'd say yes and hold the phone at the flattering angle he taught me. Sometimes I was in the background, hair tied up, holding his bag while he framed his friends just so. I laughed at the right beats. I thought I was supporting his joy. Then something shifted. Date nights became content nights. The pasta cooled while Marco fussed with a ring light clipped to a sugar jar. I learned the grammar of performance. 3-second hook, jump cut, clink the glass near the mic for texture. Even our anniversary demanded a new location. Somewhere his group hadn't featured yet, fresh backdrop for Adulting with the Hive, their podcast Instagram chimera with 15,000 followers and an appetite that outgrew us. Everything was content. Every brunch, every conversation, every moment became a product demo for a life I stopped living. There was also Sienna, camera smart, caption sharp. I knew, in the way women know, that she and Marco had dated in college. 2 months officially. Years of chemistry, unofficially. They called it ancient history. She called him family. I never asked for details. I just learned to breathe through the way their inside jokes arrived, pre-edited for applause. 3 months ago, Marco bailed on my brother's wedding. No, my older brother's wedding now in this version of my life, because every time I told the Hive about my world, it got rearranged to fit their storyline. There's a sponsored live stream, Marco said, a once-in-a-lifetime takeover. A rehearsal dinner without my partner felt like a rehearsal for something worse. I swallowed it and told myself love requires flexibility. 2 months ago, I came home to strangers in my living room. Sienna, Brianna, Cody, and Derek had rearranged our furniture for angles. I stood in the doorway with grocery bags biting into my palms. "It's Marco's place too," Brianna said, rolling her eyes when I asked who had okayed this. "We'll put everything back." They didn't. Last month, the joint account pinged with charges that didn't belong to me. Ubers across town at midnight. Coffee I never drank in neighborhoods I didn't visit. "Group expenses," Marco said. "Podcast fees, props. I'll pay you back." That account was for Portugal. For us. For a version of the future that didn't need a hashtag. I kept trying to say how it felt. Marco kept calling it insecurity. "You knew they were part of the package, Shem," he'd remind me. "I'm not abandoning my people because you're uncomfortable." It was a script we'd rehearsed so often that guilt queued up on its own. Maybe I was controlling. Maybe being a good partner meant holding someone's camera steady while they forgot your name. Yesterday was our 3-year anniversary. I planned it like an apology to myself. Book the Snoqualmie cabin where Marco first told me he loved me, pack his favorite snacks, and the cheap Trader Joe's wine he swears tastes like a secret. 2 days off work. No cameras. I wanted us back, uncut. The morning began with promise. I told him to pack a bag. He smiled like he meant it. Then his phone buzzed. Their group chat, always their group chat, and the air changed. "Babe," he said, "I'm so sorry, but the Hive needs me. A wellness brand booked a last-minute Instagram takeover. We all have to be there. This is the break we've been waiting for." I stood in our kitchen with hiking boots laced and a cooler packed. "What about us?" The question sounded simple and needy and final all at once. "We can do the cabin next weekend," he said. "Why are you being unsupportive?" I opened my mouth to explain support as something that happens when nobody's watching, something that remembers promises even when the algorithm doesn't. But he reached for the line that would end our morning and start my silence. "Xenia, love can wait, but the group cannot. They were here before you, and they will be here after." The sentence hung between us like a lens cap, black, flattening, inevitable. He tried to walk it back. words piling up behind his teeth. I felt something cold unspool in my chest, the kind of cold that makes decisions for you. He left 20 minutes later, ring light clacking against his backpack. I sat on the couch and stared at our walls. Photographs of Marco and the hive at beaches, rooftops, coffee bars with latte art arranged like little perfect lies. 2 pictures of just us, a blurry first date, a Christmas where we belong to each other's shoulders. On the fridge, a vision board filled with their goals: 20,000 followers, major brand deal, launch a Patreon. Nothing about Portugal, nothing about us. At midnight, he crawled into bed, kissed my shoulder, and fell asleep with his friendship bracelet catching the street light. I watched the ceiling and tried to find the part of me that still believed I was a partner rather than a prop. This morning, I opened my laptop and started looking at apartments. A 1-bedroom in Fremont. Small. The shower looked like a spaceship that failed inspection. Available immediately. I could afford it alone. I told myself I was gathering options, not detonating our life. Then I remembered an Instagram story from last week. Sienna and Marco making breakfast while I worked in the background. Caption: The Hive, plus our unpaid camera woman. I closed the laptop and walked to the bedroom. Marco slept on his stomach, arm flung wide like a man who believes space will always rearrange for him. I watched him and understood the kind of love that asks to be fed first, every time. By noon, I'd toured the Fremont place. The landlord said I could sign the same day. I hesitated on the threshold, smelling the ghosts of someone else's takeout and detergent, and felt a calm I hadn't felt in months. No ring light, no producers, just silence so complete it scared me with its kindness. Back at the apartment, I told Marco I was moving out. He cried. He said I was abandoning him, giving up without trying, sabotaging. The moment before the brand took off. We can fix this, he promised. Just be patient. I've been patient for 3 years, I said, and my voice surprised me with how certain it sounded. I started packing. In the drawer with the spare batteries, I found bank statements, little transfers I'd missed. $600, over 4 months, labeled Hive Creative Fund. Our Portugal money, bleeding into a story I didn't want to tell. I'll pay you back, Marco said, defensive, familiar. You're being controlling. I zipped my suitcase. The zipper made a sound like a door deciding to close. 3 trips in my hatchback later, I placed the apartment key on our counter with a note. I hope you find what you're looking for. The door clicked behind me. In the Fremont place, the landlord helped me carry in a folding chair and a card table. I bought an air mattress at Target and ate takeout on the floor. The quiet felt like a real room, one I could finally move around in without bumping into someone else's plotline. I didn't cry that night. I watched my own hands assemble a lamp. I listened to my own breath. I fell asleep not to the glow of a phone, but to the dark, uncomplicated fact of being alone. In the morning, the sun came through the cheap blinds like it didn't care who was watching. It touched the wall and kept going. I lay there and let it. Somewhere, the hive was posting. Somewhere, a comment section was deciding what kind of woman I was. In this room, I didn't have to decide anything except where to put the table. I texted my brother that I'd moved. He sent back one word: proud. When I stood to make coffee, I realized the air felt lighter, and the silence, for the first time, didn't feel like a void. It felt like a beginning. I picked up my phone, scrolled past notifications I didn't open, and typed Marco a final message. Return the joint account money. No cameras, no ambushes. If you want to talk, talk like a person, not a brand. I hit send. Then I put my phone face down and watched the kettle steam. Somewhere inside the quiet, a truth arrived like a new key in an old lock. I am not your unpaid camera woman. I will not be a supporting character in my own life. Not anymore. The first night alone in Fremont felt like someone had pressed mute on the world. No buzzing notifications, no overlapping laughter from the hive, no Marco pacing the hallway rehearsing ad reads. Just me, a folding chair, a cheap air mattress that hissed slightly every time I moved, and silence, the kind that first feels wrong because you've forgotten it's what real peace sounds like. 2 days later, I was sitting cross-legged on the floor, eating pad thai out of the container, when my phone buzzed. Marco, we need to talk, in person. The message sat there, glowing. I almost deleted it, but something in me, curiosity, maybe pity, replied. Tomorrow, noon. My place. I expected Marco. I did not expect all 5 of them. At 11:58, the knock came. When I opened the door, the hallway was full of equipment. Tripods, a ring light, even a microphone dangling from Cody's shoulder. Behind him, Marco stood with a brittle smile. Sienna held her camera like a peace offering. "We're here to talk," she said, "and maybe to film? For transparency, like for our audience." For a moment, the words didn't make sense. They'd turned my home, my quiet, into another set. "Turn it off," I said. Brianna raised a brow. "This is how we process. Authentically." "Authenticity doesn't need a tripod," I snapped. Derek sighed, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "If you cared about Marco, you'd support his healing. This helps him process." Something inside me clicked. The whole thing was content. My heartbreak, his guilt, my refusal. They'd come to capture my reaction, to stage a redemption arc with tears and resolution, something their followers could call raw. Marco took a step forward. "Xenia, please, let's just talk. No performance, I promise." "Then why is there a mic in my doorway?" Nobody answered. I stood there, heartbeat steady, voice even. "Leave. All of you. Now." Cody muttered, "See? She's hostile. This is what we meant." And Brianna, still recording, whispered, "Keep rolling." I felt my hand trembling as I pointed toward the hall. "Out." Sienna tried to speak, but I didn't hear her. I saw Marco's eyes, the same eyes that once looked at me across a campfire and said he loved me. And all I could think was, you let them turn us into this. They left slowly, muttering about boundaries and space. Sienna's parting shot. "You'll regret this when people hear your side." When the door closed, the silence returned. Heavy, bruised, but mine. That night, I told my brother Ryan everything. He was in his last year of law school at UW and had a way of speaking that turned panic into procedure. "They filmed you without consent," he said, "and if they post that anywhere, it's defamation. Not just unethical, it's illegal." Together we drafted a cease and desist, calm, precise, cold as marble. I emailed it to all 5 members of the Hive. 2 days later, Marco finally responded. "Xenia, it's not that serious. We're moving on. You're making this harder than it needs to be." Not that serious. They had humiliated me in my own apartment, and it wasn't serious. I didn't answer. The next morning, my coworker Janice knocked on my office door. "Hey, Xenia, HR wants to see you." My stomach dropped. Inside, my manager sat with that careful HR smile. "We just need to check in. Someone forwarded a video from TikTok." My pulse went cold. On the screen, there I was, grainy, cut, edited, the footage of me telling them to get out. No cameras in the shot, no context, just me, looking angry. The caption read, "When someone can't handle accountability, toxic behavior, caught on camera." 40,000 views, thousands of comments, controlling, insecure, crazy. Some said Marco deserved better. Others tagged wellness brands, calling me the jealous ex who hated content creators. I couldn't breathe. My boss believed me, or said he did, but the rumor had already crawled through the office vents. I became the girl from TikTok, the one who yelled at her influencer boyfriend. People whispered when I passed. That night, Ryan came over with takeout and 2 laptops. "We're not letting this stand." We sent the cease and desist again, this time CCing their sponsor, Vitale Wellness, and their brand manager. I didn't expect much, but 48 hours later, the video vanished. No apology, no admission, just gone. But the internet never really deletes. Screenshots existed. Reaction videos multiplied. Some creators began questioning the Hive's ethics. Comments under their posts turned sour. "Wait, did they stage that?" Feels exploitative. Not everything is content. By the end of the week, Vitale Wellness dropped them. Sienna posted a cryptic story. "Fake people in business always get exposed." Brianna ranted about corporate betrayal. Their follower count stalled. Their podcast downloads halved. I didn't celebrate. I just sat on my mattress, watching the blue notification light blink and fade. Peace doesn't always arrive with victory. Sometimes it arrives as exhaustion that finally has a place to land. I stopped checking their pages. I muted their names. I returned to my projects, my coffee, my morning runs. But late one night, curiosity won. I searched the Hive again. They'd posted a clip, the 5 of them sitting on a couch talking about growth and boundaries. Their smiles looked thinner. Marco's hand fiddled with his bracelet, the one I bought him in Portland. Sienna said, "We learned a lot this year about how to treat people with respect." Marco nodded. Some people weren't ready to heal publicly. No names, but the subtext was a spotlight. I closed the video halfway through. The next morning, I deleted the app. 2 weeks later, I was promoted to project lead. My supervisor said, "You've been quieter lately, focused. It suits you." I smiled. Quiet finally suited me too. One evening, I went for a run through Gasworks Park, wind cutting against my skin. The city glittered across the water, real light, not staged. When I stopped to catch my breath, a thought arrived. They turned my heartbreak into a show, and somehow I still made it out with my story intact. The silence, at last, was mine, and no one was watching. It's strange how quickly life reorganizes itself once you stop begging it to. Days stopped stretching like open wounds. They became measurable again. Mornings had edges, evenings had warmth. 3 months after the cease and desist, I could walk through my apartment without flinching at the sound of my phone. No buzz meant no ambush, no tag meant peace. I started running again. 6 a.m., around Lake Union, headphones off. The world sounded raw and unscripted. Geese cutting through fog, cyclists cursing traffic, the quiet slap of my shoes against damp pavement. Every mile untangled a little more of what the hive had twisted in me. Work filled in the rest. I led my first infrastructure project downtown, overseeing contractors, arguing blueprints, solving problems that had real consequences. I liked that. When I calculated wrong, no one called it content. One Friday, my coworker Matt insisted I come to his Super Bowl party. "You've been hibernating," he said. "Time to rejoin the living." I went. I almost left after 10 minutes. Then Leo sat beside me on the couch, navy sweatshirt, sleeves pushed up, holding a slice of pizza with ranch like it was fine dining. He smiled and said, "So, you're the engineer who beat HR drama and TikTok in the same quarter?" I groaned. "Oh no, you saw that?" Everyone did. The internet has a short memory, though. I didn't buy it. "Why not?" He shrugged. "People who love cameras don't usually love truth." That made me laugh. It had been months since I'd laughed without bracing for the echo. We talked through the entire game, about Seattle traffic, about why the best coffee spots are always hidden behind laundromats. He wasn't performing. He wasn't watching me to see how I looked while I spoke. He was just there, a solid presence that didn't need lighting adjustments. When he left, he handed me his number written on a napkin. "If you ever want to talk about real life, not the online kind." It felt like an invitation, not an audition. Weeks blurred into something gentle. Dinner after work, walks around Fremont. Leo hated social media. A private Instagram with 80 followers, mostly dog accounts, and one blurry picture of Mount Rainier. He'd glance at my phone and grin. "You don't miss it, do you?" "Not the parts that screamed," I said. He nodded. "Good. Silence is underrated." It was a quiet relationship. Not dull, just honest. No selfies, no captions, no us as brand identity. One Saturday, we drove to Rattlesnake Ledge. Clear skies. Mountains like folded paper in the distance. At the summit, he took a single photo of the view, not of us, then tucked his phone away. We sat on a rock, just breathing. For an hour, we didn't speak. We didn't need to. It was the opposite of the hive. Nothing to prove, no audience to feed. That night, I realized I hadn't thought about Marco all day. Not once. Meanwhile, the hive was unraveling. Even muted, news found me through whispers. Matt's girlfriend, who followed every influencer drama page, filled me in over lunch. Sienna and Brianna had fallen out. Something about missing funds. Cody was posting solo influencer journey videos from LA, each one averaging a few hundred views. Their podcast comments were full of arguments. What happened to the group? You guys changed. Bring back the real hive. They limited comments, then turned them off. Every post after that looked emptier. They kept smiling, but you could feel the air thinning between them. I should have felt vindicated, but I didn't. I felt tired. Fame built on pretending was a collapsing building. You didn't cheer when it fell. You just stepped back so the dust wouldn't reach you. One evening, Leo made dinner at my place. pesto pasta, and garlic bread that smelled like comfort. After we ate, he looked at me across the table and said, "You know what I like about you?" I smirked. "My impeccable choice in pasta?" He shook his head. "You don't narrate your life out loud. You just live it." I blinked. It was such a simple thing, but it landed like a confession I hadn't realized I'd been waiting to hear. That night, as he left, he pressed a small note into my hand. On it, in skillful, looping handwriting, "Peace looks good on you." For the first time in years, I believed it. A week later, I got an email from an old coworker. "Is this you?" Attached was a link, a Reddit thread dissecting leaked screenshots from the Hive's Discord. The top comment read, "They scripted everything. Even that reconciliation episode with the ex. Planned the camera angles, the tears, the narrative. This is why people don't trust influencers." My chest tightened. It had begun. The screenshots showed their private messages, timelines, thumbnails, discussions about which emotional beats would convert best. They'd storyboarded my humiliation. Even my words, "get out of my apartment," had been predicted, labeled possible climax line. It wasn't rumor, it was proof. And yet, scrolling through those messages, I didn't feel rage, just an ache, because I finally saw how deep the performance went, how Marco had become another actor reading lines he didn't write. The Hive had called me toxic for refusing to play a part, but I wasn't toxic, I was unscripted. I closed my laptop and looked around my quiet apartment, the same one where the story began. The lamp I built still flickered softly. The silence, again, was whole. Leo texted, "Up for brunch tomorrow? Real food, no filters." I smiled. Maybe healing wasn't loud. Maybe it was the quiet decision to keep living in a world that doesn't need to watch you to know you exist. It started as a whisper online, a half-believed rumor that felt too chaotic to be true. Then, overnight, it became a flood. The Hive's private group chat had leaked. Not a few messages, not selective screenshots. Years of them. Thousands of lines, spanning arguments, strategies, and carefully curated performances. Someone, no one knew who, had posted them to Reddit. By morning, Hive Leak was trending. I was at the office when Matt stormed into my cubicle, eyes wide, phone in hand. "Xenia, you might want to sit down." I didn't. I just stared as he scrolled, showing me the proof I'd always known existed in the air between us, but had never expected to see written out. In their private group chat, they had planned everything. The reconciliation episode, the camera angles, how to position me as unstable, make sure she looks defensive, emotional, avoid showing our gear. My apartment, my boundaries, my face, all storyboarded for virality. Then, the jokes. "She's so earnest, it'll make the twist hit harder." "Cody, get a shot of her eyes when she realizes we're filming." "Marco, be gentle in the edit. We want pity, not rage." My stomach turned. I thought I'd already grieved what they'd done, but grief has layers, and this one cut deeper, because this wasn't impulsive cruelty. It was deliberate, coordinated, performed. The comments section was chaos. People who once idolized the Hive now tore them apart. This is sociopathic. How did they think this was okay? They literally wrote a script about ruining someone's life. Within hours, their sponsors began pulling out. Brand partnerships gone. Podcast episodes mass deleted. Sienna posted something cryptic on her story. "Sometimes the truth gets twisted by people who want to destroy you." But even her most loyal fans didn't buy it. Then, new details surfaced, ones even I didn't know. Sienna had been secretly dating Derek, though they'd pretended to be just friends for their followers. Cody had moved to LA, chasing solo fame and burning through savings. Brianna, the one who always claimed to handle the finances, had been faking sponsor invoices, pocketing money, and lying about production costs. A screenshot showed Sienna's meltdown in their Patreon Discord. "You stole from us, Brianna. You used our names to scam brands." Brianna's reply: "I needed it. You all act like you're better, but we've been lying since day one." The internet devoured it. Think pieces, commentary videos, podcasts dissecting the fall of the Hive. For years, they'd built a world of glossy vulnerability. Now, everyone saw the seams. I didn't post, I didn't comment, I didn't even tell Leo at first. I just watched. watched their empire of validation crumble under the weight of its own performance. And then I saw Marco's messages. Not the worst, not cruel exactly, but hollow in a way that hurt more. We just need to manage the optics. She's emotional, but this will get people talking. I don't want to destroy her. I just want control of the story. Control of the story. That was all it ever was to him. To them. Narrative over truth. Optics over empathy. I closed my laptop, my hands were trembling, but my heart was strangely steady, because for the first time, everyone saw what I saw. They weren't a family. They were a brand, addicted to attention. And attention, like any addiction, eventually takes more than it gives. That night, I told Leo. We were sitting on my balcony, the city blinking in the distance. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "So, justice finally came, but it doesn't feel good, does it?" I shook my head. It just feels empty. Because justice doesn't rebuild what they broke. You do that. His words landed softly, like truth disguised as kindness. He reached for my hand, and we stayed like that for a while. No noise, no commentary, no audience. Just two people sharing the silence. In the days that followed, the hive disintegrated publicly. Sienna posted tearful apologies. Brianna disappeared entirely. Cody went live, blaming toxic group dynamics. Derek deleted everything. Instagram, podcast pages, even his LinkedIn. And Marco, he finally broke his silence with a 3-minute video titled Taking Accountability. I almost didn't watch it. But curiosity, or closure, won. He looked different, tired. His apartment was empty, walls bare. He talked about pressure, about groupthink, about how we all lost ourselves. He never said my name, but he didn't need to. Everyone knew who he meant. At the end, he looked straight into the camera and said, "Sometimes we hurt people because we forget they're not content. They're human." It sounded rehearsed, but maybe for once he meant it. A week later, Leo and I went hiking again. Same trail, same ledge, same view. But this time, the quiet felt different. Not the silence of survival, the silence of freedom. At the top, I checked my phone out of habit. No notifications. The world wasn't talking about me anymore, and that was the best headline I could have asked for. Leo looked over. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "I think the story's finally ending." He smiled. "Then it's time to start a new one." I slipped my phone into my pocket and let the wind carry whatever was left of the hive's noise down the mountain. For the first time in years, no one was watching. And I didn't care, because this quiet, ordinary moment was real. 6 months after the leak, the world had finally moved on. No new scandals, no follow-up videos, no hashtags with my name. Just quiet, the kind that doesn't ask to be filled. Leo and I had planned a weekend at Olympic National Park. No service, no itinerary, no performance, just forest, water, and the hum of being alive without witnesses. He packed coffee beans and a hand grinder. I packed paperbacks and a rain jacket. We didn't need much else. The day before the trip, I ran errands, groceries, gas, toothpaste. I ended up at the Ballard Market, the one near the docks with the good coffee stand. I was comparing frozen dinners when a voice said my name. "Xenia?" I turned. Marco. He looked nothing like the man I used to know. Shorter hair, no jewelry, no ring light glow on his skin. Just a gray hoodie, tired eyes, and a basket filled with instant ramen and discounted soup cans. For a moment, we both stood there in the freezer aisle, surrounded by humming machines that sounded like breath. "Hey," I said finally. "Hey," he echoed. "Didn't think I'd ever run into you." It wasn't awkward, just surreal, like seeing a ghost in daylight. He gestured to his basket, half smiling. "Real glamorous, huh?" "Looks normal to me." We ended up walking to the coffee stand outside, almost on autopilot. Neither of us suggested it. It just happened, like muscle memory from another life. He ordered black coffee, no syrup, no oat milk, no content aesthetic, just coffee. We sat on a bench facing the water, the November wind sliding between us. He spoke first. "You heard what happened." I nodded. "Some of it." "Sienna's in rehab," he said quietly. "Social media addiction and anxiety. Her parents staged an intervention in April." I said nothing. He kept talking, voice thin. "Cody's back in LA, broke, crashing on couches. Brianna moved home to Spokane, working at her dad's insurance office. Derek deleted everything. I don't even know where he is. He took a long breath. The hive's over. Has been for a while. I looked at him, this stripped-down version of the man who once measured love in engagement metrics. What about you? I asked. He stared at his cup. I'm in therapy, twice a week, trying to figure out why I needed an audience to feel real. His hands shook slightly. My therapist asked when the last time was that I did something without documenting it. I couldn't answer. I let that sit in the air. Then he looked at me. We really messed up, didn't we? I exhaled slowly. Yeah, you did. He nodded. No defense, no but. Just silence. The first honest sound I'd ever heard from him. After a while, he said, I read the comments, the ones after the leak. They said I was a monster. I watched a gull land on the railing, pecking at a torn sandwich wrapper. You were human, just not a good one to me. He winced, but he didn't argue. Then, quietly, you were right, Xenia, about everything. I didn't know how to exist without an audience. The hive wasn't just my friend group, it was my identity, and when it fell apart, I did too. The wind carried the smell of salt and coffee between us. He added, the scariest part now is that no one's watching, but maybe that's what I need. I looked at him, small, quiet, stripped of spotlight, and realized I wasn't angry anymore, just sad. Sad it had taken destruction for him to finally see the world as it was. I hope you find peace, I said. Real peace, the kind that doesn't need to trend. He smiled, faint, tired, but real. You already have, haven't you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. We sat a few more minutes, watching the water. When his phone buzzed in his pocket, he glanced at it, then didn't reach for it. That small act, more than any apology, felt like progress. He stood. I should go. Thank you for talking to me. You didn't deserve my time, I said, but I gave it anyway. He nodded, eyes glassy. Take care of yourself, Xenia. You too. He walked away, shrinking into the gray crowd. I stayed on the bench, finishing my coffee as the wind picked up. The sky above the harbor was the color of soft metal. I thought about the years we'd spent together, the laughter before everything turned into content, the way he used to steal my hoodies, the version of him that existed before validation became oxygen. That person might still be buried somewhere under the noise, but finding him isn't my story anymore. Mine is quieter now. When I got home, Leo was waiting, leaning against my door with a bag of takeout and that crooked grin. How was shopping? He asked. Eventful, he laughed. Everything you do seems to turn into a story. Not this one, I said, stepping into his arms. This one's just life. We left the city early the next morning. No posts, no updates, just the hum of the car and the rain on the windshield. By the time we reached the park, signal had vanished. The world felt clean again, unobserved. We set up a small tent under the trees, brewed coffee over a camp stove, and watched the steam rise. Leo looked at me, soft-eyed, and said, You okay? I nodded. Yeah, I think I finally am. He smiled. Then let's keep it that way. No cameras allowed. We sat there listening to the rain. No likes, no captions, no audience. Just two people existing, quietly, in a story that didn't need to be performed to be real. And for the first time in years, I didn't need proof that I was living it.